Hello, everyone. We are group number 7, and the title of our project is Dining Survey Solutions. And I'm here joined by Bright, myself, Brandon, and Kyle. And we'll go ahead and get started. So, the executive summary. So, during COVID-19, consumers have been eating out less and preferred staying at home and cooking for themselves, or using delivery options due to safety protocols put in place by the pandemic. By understanding the consumer base on a deeper level, we will assist Texas Roadhouse, which is our sponsor, in determining if they should invest additional funds to regrow its customer base or change their strategy to meet the demands of the changing market. Better understanding their target market will determine if they increase investments with in-dining experiences or allot money towards their own delivery service. So like I said, the research sponsor is Texas Roadhouse, and they are a full-service casual dining restaurant chain, offers assorted seasoned and aged steaks specializing in southwestern cuisine. Texas Roadhouse targets secondary markets for expansion, preferring communities with populations above 60,000 and a high concentration of working class families. So the research objectives. So the objective and goal we're trying to find is if Texas Roadhouse should invest additional funds towards in-dining experiences in order to incentivize people back to eating within the restaurant, or if they should recognize and explore if there is a permanent change in the market post-COVID-19, resulting in Texas Roadhouse potentially adopting better delivery services in order to accommodate. Now for context, consumers have been eating out less and preferred staying at home, cooking for themselves, and using delivery methods, like we said before, due to safety protocols put in place since COVID-19. By surveying customers, we'll be able to see how much the behavior has changed or stayed the same post the COVID-19 era. And so some of the research questions. Number 1, how much has ordering food from Texas Roadhouse changed post COVID-19 in dining versus delivery? Has Texas Roadhouse lost customers since COVID-19? Is there a permanent shift in how customers order food from Texas Roadhouse? What are consumers' opinions on ordering in dining versus delivery, and why? What percentage of orders come from in dining versus delivery? And what is the difference of profit margins on in-dining versus delivery? So these are some of the main topics of conversation and questions we wanted to answer, mainly considering if Texas Roadhouse should adopt or partner with delivery service apps. And so the survey mode that we decided to go with is online surveys, and we would incentivize consumers to take the online surveys by offering vouchers for a free appetizer or dessert to use at the restaurant, or with any online or takeout order. By surveying customers, we will be able to see how much in-dining versus delivery behavior has changed or stayed the same post the COVID-19 era. So some of the positives that come with online surveys are we get increased response rates, low costs, it's very convenient, flexibility in design, there's no interview, and incentives return business. Some negatives are survey fraud, limited sampling, respondent availability, lack of turnout, and sometimes limited clarification. And so the first step that we went into is the pretest mode. We had two groups, Group A and Group B. Both consisted of 6 to 10 members of the client's primary and secondary target market who continued to eat out. One of them, Group A, was the group that continued to eat out during the pandemic, and Group B were those who chose not to dine in or take out during the pandemic. So some advantages of this model is that it measures the reaction of members to the company's strategy and service, ability to cover multiple aspects of the concept, and get feedback in a shorter time frame. It's a cost-effective way to conduct research, and it develops information from members' experiences, expanding the initial concept shared in the focus group. Some disadvantages include they are considered to have less individual conversation time. The moderator can be biased and can impact the focus group's discussion outcome. Focus groups can struggle with staying engaged in discussions, and an individual can decide to give dishonest responses or be hesitant of their opinions in the focus group discussion. And with that, I'm going to leave it off with Kyle.
All right, these are the pre-test questions that we used. For Group A, it was before restrictions from the COVID-19 pandemic about how many times did you eat out. Name your favorite 3 restaurants and why they're your favorite. Who do you usually dine out with? Treat yourself, family, coworkers. On average, how many times did you order takeout during the pandemic? Do you currently feel safe eating out? Why or why not? And then group B was the same questions except for one down at the bottom. Did you participate in any at-home cooking experiences during the pandemic? Group B or Group A, the pretest plan was these questions were handed out March 19th at 10 a.m. Group B was March 19th at 1 p.m. Target population. Texas Roadhouse targets communities with populations over 60,000 and a high concentration of working class families. The restaurant hosts a split mix of patrons consisting of families with children and young to middle-aged adults gathered without children. Since the majority of Texas Roadhouse are not open for breakfast or lunch, the focus remains on white-collar workers after business hours and dinner time for working families. Average income population is around $50,000 a year. Sampling frame. Here are some general statistics that represent the sampling frame by estimating how big the sample size could possibly be. The daily number of meals served for Texas Roadhouse is an average of 5,000 guests per week per restaurant. There are 430 of them distributed over 49 states. That equals to 715 guests per day over 430 restaurants. That means Texas Roadhouse serves roughly 307,000 guests in total every day. That average response rate for online surveys within restaurants is roughly 12.5%. That equals out to an average of 38,375 total surveys filled out per day across all Texas Roadhouse restaurants. If the numbers translate equally across restaurants, which they don't, that would mean an average of 89 surveys would be filled out per restaurant every day. 623 surveys completed in a week span. Sampling design. The sample design for our survey would be played out via simple random sampling. This is due to the fact that our sample population would be drawn from the unpredictability of our survey distribution, meaning the random chance of customers actually filling out the survey. The mode in which we would collect data would be through online surveys, via on the receipts of in-dining customers and within the applications of delivery customers. We would incentivize them to take the online surveys by creating a system that would allow them to earn credits, which can be spent on meals within Texas Roadhouse. Pilot data collection procedures. Like mentioned before, surveys will be conducted through two different frameworks. First, customers purchasing food from Texas Roadhouse via partnered delivery applications or dining in person. These customers will be directed to complete the survey from a link found on the receipt. It is important we receive these alternative sets of data to compare and contrast with existing data. The length of time for this survey invite will be 90 days. Second, the survey will also be sent out to existing Texas Roadhouse patrons who are registered in the restaurant's database to receive updates and specials regarding local and national campaigns. The data from the frame population will be used to compare with regional and national statistics. Increasing response rates. Pre-notifying participants. This will be done by reminding every in-dining customer about the survey link on the receipt when paying the bill at the end of their meal. The same will be done for online/delivery orders, as the link to the survey will pop up on the receipt within their application, reminding them of its existence every time they purchase an order. Publicizing the survey. This will be applied towards existing Texas Roadhouse patrons who are registered in the restaurant's database, as they will receive constant emails and updates about the survey and will be informed about its progress and purpose. Providing incentives. In our case, we would incentivize customers to take our survey by creating a system that would allow them to earn credits, which can be saved up and spent on various entrees and specials from Texas Roadhouse. Increasing response rates, second slide. Using reminder notes. Send reminder notes to potential respondents beginning 3 to 7 days after survey distribution. This is once again is similarly tied to the publicize the survey approach, as existing Texas Roadhouse patrons who are registered in the restaurant's database will receive constant emails and reminders on the survey 3 to 7 days after it is distribution. Establishing survey importance. This will be done by verbally communicating with in-dining customers about the importance of the survey and the practical changes that could affect their experience. Same with online/delivery orders and existing Texas Roadhouse patrons. Under the link or email of the survey will be an explanation of possible changes that could occur depending on the results of the survey. Post-data collection processing. We plan to use hot deck imputation and mean value imputation by subgroup to deal with the response bias created from certain respondents not filling out every question on the survey. This will begin after coding the text data is complete. Bright will be conducting hot deck imputation. Brandon will be conducting mean value imputation by subgroup. This is to test multiple imputation methods to see the variability between the two. Coding text data by transferring the answers to the questions into ordered numerical values that can be measured holistically and categorically between geographic regions and ethnicity, done by me, Kyle. Data analysis procedures. We will analyze answers to each question via Excel graphs and statistical analysis. This will be done by all of us through a shared Google Sheet after post-data collection processing is complete. These statistical analysis will include mean, median, mode, variance, standard deviation, correlations between questions, regression statistics, etc. Like mentioned before, this stage of the project, data analysis, will be a collaborative effort through a shared Google Sheet, and at that point, I'll hand it off to Bright.
So displayed are 3 graphs with some key insights and findings that we collected from our data research. We collected these on a scale rating from a lot less, somewhat less, same as before, somewhat more, and a lot more. So the first one, the insight that we found was participants dining in at Texas Roadhouse since pandemic. The highest response that we had was same as before, followed by somewhat less, meaning that many of Texas Roadhouse customers continue to dine in Texas Roadhouse when permitted with state and local guidelines compared to pre or post pandemic. They remained about the same. The second graph that we see is participants ordering takeaway or delivery at Texas Roadhouse since pandemic. In this case, we had the most respondents say somewhat more, followed by same as before. And then this last insight, we have participants dining in at competitors' restaurants since pandemic, and that revealed somewhat less, followed by same as before. The next slide is data analysis, results, findings, and interpretation. So in these 2 circle graphs, and the first one we see on the left is average times a week participants would dine out pre-pandemic. The highest response being 40%, 1 to 2 times a week, followed by 3 to 4 times a week, 25% response. 17% said 7 or more times a week, 13% 5 to 6 times, 5% responded with never. Customer preferences. So in this finding, we see that most customers preferred dining out versus delivery, 68% to 32%. A discussion of findings. Major points gathered from our findings and analysis. Delivery apps were on the rise prior to COVID-19 and would have continued the trend independent of the pandemic. Texas Roadhouse main demographics were blue-collar working-class families who mostly remained working in person throughout the pandemic. Since most of Texas Roadhouse consumer base consists of this demographic of people, the in-person dining business model would remain unaffected to a significant degree post-COVID-19. And during COVID-19, Texas Roadhouse lost customers just like the rest of the food industry. However, post-COVID-19 trends have seemed to have gone back to normal with only a slight trend towards delivery purchases. And lastly, although Texas Roadhouse's main consumer base allows them to fully function without delivery services offered, they're still missing out on potential revenue by not having a partnership with any food delivery service company, especially since the amount of delivery orders continues to increase every single year. Conclusion and recommendations. So our recommendation is it's a good idea for Texas Roadhouse to start partnering with food delivery service companies. However, their inclusive in-dining business model would remain stable and unaffected for a foreseeable amount of future, but not long term. These conclusions are backed up by the following reasons. First off, food delivery apps they have grown 11.4% annually independent of COVID-19, meaning that pre-pandemic, referring back to the context of our research questions, that trend was already on the rise with that 11.4% growth. And COVID-19 pandemic only increased that projected growth for that. Next, they are missing out on potential markets and revenue, even if it does not affect them right now. And although Texas Roadhouse consumer-based demographics lean towards the more in-person dining compared to the national average, meaning that, again, their customer base are blue, white-collar workers that are meeting after work. They're taking advantage of happy hour. They're attending the restaurant with their families. They're enjoying that in-dining atmosphere and that environment that Texas Roadhouse is offering them. But despite this strong customer and loyal consumer base, they're still missing out on another profitable market of customers by not offering this service to them. And this trend is only going to grow and become more normal as we continue post-pandemic. Cited below are some of the references that we used when citing some of these statistics in relation to the growing trend and projection for national averages using food delivery service apps. And then the last slide that we have is just the link to the SurveyMonkey, in which we pushed out those survey questions. And that concludes our project presentation.